course, we're here today to ask the MMTIC Expert, and that's our friend Dr. Elizabeth Murphy. She is the co-author of the MMTIC Assessment, the Murphy-Meisgeier Type Indicator for Children instrument. And what we like to say about that is that every child appreciated, every child engaged is the goal that we have. And this instrument is published by the Center for Applications of Psychological Type. I'm Rob Rothschild. I'm the marketing director here. And we are so happy to have with us today Dr. Elizabeth Murphy. And we're going to start with a question that we already made up, that we often get. And so, Elizabeth, take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for sharing your afternoon time. And do feel comfortable asking questions. In the past, people have said to me, when I'm working with a group of children, what are some feedback splitting activities that I can do to demonstrate type differences? And this isn't unique to the children's population. I saw on LinkedIn today that somebody had posted, I'm doing a training with some senior managers. Does anybody have some splitting activities that I can do with senior managers? So as people are new to the field and start trying to work with groups and they want to demonstrate a critical difference, it's sometimes hard to say, what exactly can I do? So I thought I would share with you a couple of ideas that have been used in the past. Certainly, if any of you have some that you have used with different age groups, feel free to chime in and tell us how that worked for you or not. When we're doing the splitting activities with groups, it's kind of nice because you get a chance to see the differences demonstrated. Sometimes I will take that role on for doing it feedback with an individual where I will say, so you tell me how you would have reacted with this, and I'll tell you how people with the other preference might have reacted, so that we can still get the modeling of two different good ways of either processing information or reacting to a moment. For any of you who are currently certified or currently enrolled in the certification program and you have eligibility to use the facilitator's interface with CAPT, you have a lot of really nice free downloads that come with that. And one of those is a list of 10 activities that you can do if you're giving feedback to groups of children. That includes how to structure the setup and even some common questions that you might ask afterwards. So for those who have access, there's already a sampling of 1 or 2 activities for each one of the dichotomies. One that I had done and found to be really successful with the kids was I used Diane Ferris's book called Type Tales, and they're just little stories about 2 dogs named Momo and Millie, and the book is available through CAPT. But they're just little stories. You can read the vignette for the EI differences probably in 2 minutes. So we would read the vignette to the whole class about Momo and Millie. And then we would talk about, well, first we had talked about what are some differences between, let's say, extroverts and introverts. Then we'd read the Momo and Millie story, and I'd say, based on what you heard in the story, do you think Momo sounds more like the extroverted preference or the introverted preference? And what was it in the story that gave you those clues? And then vice versa, what were the clues that helped you to see Millie's preferences? And I would do this with students as young as 3rd grade, and probably 7th grade was the oldest that I used the Momo and Millie stories with. And they still liked them even though the stories were younger children's stories. But they had no problem identifying with the differences. And then to say, have any of you ever felt like Momo, or have any of you ever felt like Millie? Then they were more able to personalize some of the examples. So with the EI one, for example, they talk about having to study and how they go into the library and one of them just wants to sit and study in the nice quiet of the library, and the other one can't stand it. After about 10 minutes of sitting, has to get up, go talk to the librarian, get up, go see what's in the vending machine, get up, go see what's out the window, get up and go do other things. And that their energy was not with sitting and quietly reading. Their energy was in more interactive processing, and since they didn't have that opportunity studying alone in the library, then they had to refresh themselves through these breaks. So then the kids would all talk about, so if you have Momo style for studying, what are some good places for you to find that quiet? Because you might have 4 or 5 brothers and sisters at home that make that a little bit harder to find at your house. Or if you have Millie style of processing and you need to be energized by doing it with friends, what are ways that you can make that happen? And so just dividing the class and saying, which side would you like to do? Would you like to brainstorm ways to study like Momo style or like Millie style? And they would easily choose where they wanted to go, and they would come back with some great suggestions and great stories about, well, when they were studying and they did that, then they had to do this in order to make that work. So it ended up being a very nice splitting activity. But it wasn't the first activity. That activity followed the characteristic differences being introduced, the story, the discernment of the characteristics from the story, and then now let's do the splitting and identify some of those critical differences. Another EI activity that has just worked, I think, every time we've done it, is we just say, you know, after they know their preferences, those who are E's and I's separate, and then design your ideal learning environment. And they just get a blank sheet of paper and markers and work together as a group. And usually, if possible, keep the groups no more than 6, simply because if you have extroverts in the team, they're going to all want to contribute, and you don't want to have a horribly long time for just processing. So if you keep the groups a little bit smaller, everybody can still have input. And it just doesn't matter, no matter what. Every time we've done that, the graphic representation of study environments is just incredibly different for extroverts and introverts. When you do an activity like that, a caution that you need to maybe offer the group is that we've asked you how you like to learn. But when the work is really, 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 really hard, extroverts need total quiet, because every outward sound is a distraction from their concentration for the difficult task. So how we like to study and what we sometimes need may not always be identical. So you want to make sure the kids understand that because I've chosen this way, that's the only way I can do it. You want them to become tuned into, is it working for me this time? Because if it's not working for me this time, maybe I could try the other way that my friends had mentioned. Okay. When you're looking at splitting activities for the E and the I again, even just talking to the kids about, talk to me about video game playing. Just share with me how it works for you. When you listen to those answers, you're going to hear some critical differences, because some love playing the video games because it's them against the machine, and they get this quiet release from all of the other pieces in their world, and they just get to relax with the machine. But others get on there to play so that they can then connect with a friend and say, I'm on level 47, and how do you get a Morgana the witch to get out of there? And they're really using it much more as an interactive activity, to the point that they're going on YouTube and look up how do you do this on Minecraft so that they can be able to impress their friends the next day with what they know about it. So even though they're doing a, quote, solitary activity, it really isn't solitary with the way that they play it. And when you say to them, what part of this is the fun part for you? The extroverted child is more engaged with being able to co-share it with somebody else. And the introverted child might say, just when I get home and I've had a whole day at school, it's just nice to have just nothing else but that to focus on, because they need to get their energy back. So I have a question. No?
Hi, Elizabeth. Rob here. No one has asked a specific question here, interestingly. Here we go. Harumi says, what is your opinion about children's after-school activities? Is it best to ask the child, best to encourage based on preference? What about quitting when they're bored with it?
Yes. Two really different issues. I'll do the quitting when they're bored first. And this ties in with a value that I have more than researched theory. But when kids would sign up for an activity, I would say you're signing up for a certain commitment time. And that commitment time might be 1 season, 1 year, 1 month, whatever the commitment time is. But that's what you're registering for. So if somebody signs up to play soccer, which is 12 weeks, and they get bored with it after 7 weeks, my answer to them was, excellent. You have learned from your experience that this isn't where you want to spend your energy. So when the 12 weeks are up, you can choose something different. If you had loved it when the 12 weeks are up, I would have allowed you to re-enroll. But if they go, but I don't want to go anymore, so I don't want to go. Don't make me go. It's not worth it. I just hate it. I don't want to go. Again, my value is the kids have to learn how to make estimations of commitment and service to the group. You signed up for a group activity, soccer. It wasn't an individual activity. And because of that, they count on you being there. They don't like me. They don't want me there. They hardly let me play. I'm not the good one on the team. It's like, okay. So you found that this wasn't where your true niche is. But our agreement in the beginning was that you had a commitment for 12 weeks. You have that commitment for 12 weeks. What can you do to find some piece that's good out of it? So, for instance, are you interested in the coaching aspect? Do you want to watch how the coaches do something? Are you interested in the refereeing? How do referees make judgment calls? Are you interested in the field and how the field is set up? Is there some other piece that you can get some value from while you're finishing out your commitment? But I don't let children's whining excuse them from meeting an obligation. I focus much more on learning how to manage it and learning how to get something positive out of it while you're completing your commitment. Now, should they be in after-school activities? For some kids, they absolutely love every minute of them. And it's just nice to be able to do some things that aren't always mastery expectations. So there can be after-school activities that are just for leisure and fun versus going for another competitive lesson. Then again, we have some children for whom that competitive lesson, I worked with a little girl this week and she was struggling with math, couldn't pass math, but she has a black belt in karate. So going to karate lessons after class is exciting for her. She absolutely excels at it and loves being with the kids there. But to go to after school to another math lab, even if it was a math lab game club, would not be fun. So I think I would sort, what are my objectives for the afternoon? Are they, one, someplace safe for you to go while I'm still at work? Then that's really not going to be an option. Only where I go could be the option. Or two, once I go to that place, am I going to learn a skill or am I going more for just fun and interaction? And what can I get out of it? But again, if they sign up for a club that requires their codependency with others, for success, then I make sure that we have an agreed upon timeline when we start so that they know that that's what they're going to be held accountable for completing. Does that answer your question?
Hi, Rob here again. I hadn't unmuted Ali Harumi yet, but Ali has a question. Oh, Harumi says yes. Let me try unmuting Ali. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Would you like to ask your question? I know you wrote it down, but go ahead and ask it if you'd like.
I did write it down. I wrote quite a long one down, didn't I?
That's okay.
Right. So basically, I live in the UK, and we provide. I've done your course in Florida, and it was fantastic. But we have a business that starts with the point of what you're born with. So we do the MMTIC assessment for personality preference, and then we go on to say the power of choice. So how you can choose to use your stretches or your strengths to get the best out of your life. And what we really try and do is at the end of the process provide the children and the families and the teachers with real strategies by type for getting on and just sort of making the most of that child. And I was just wondering what sort of resources that you had available, anything that you can help, because at the moment I use the reports that you give to sort of come up and in the background of the child to come up with these strategies. But anything that you could give me on it would be fantastic.
That just has strategies for using it with the different types of kids?
Yeah, I mean, I've got I get all your books, the books that you've just put up there now, the Exploring Personality Types. We use that at every feedback stage, and it's very rewarding. But then we sort of try and take it the next step to say, like, let's make this work in your life from day to day. And yeah, just to say, right, for when you, like, for example, at the moment we're dealing with this kid who's a real introvert, and he panics when he goes to school because he doesn't want to get asked a question. So we say, give them the strategy of saying, let's think about your day before you get there. You know, what classes do you have? What questions could be asked? You process them before you actually go and reflect on them before you actually go. And the results that we've had are quite phenomenal. I mean, it is very, very encouraging. So I just wondered if you had extra resources for us, because at the moment I'm using anything I can get on your website and in your books. But by type, you know, just the day-to-day strategies are what we're all about, really.
It is. It's helping the children to apply it.
Absolutely.
Have you referenced the type tips for kids that are through Facebook?
Is that in the feedback books or?
No, it's free on the web through Facebook. It's called Type Tips for Kids.
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
I'm up to, I think, 122. And so all they are is like a little paragraph, a clip that picks a type and then says, here's what you can do to help manage that, or here's...
Well, I get your Facebook things because I've liked your page on Facebook. So the gems that I get through that are amazing. But the challenge we have in the UK is that the British people, I'm South African, so I'm a little bit different, but the British people are quite closed to this sort of thing. So what they want is something practical. They want to see the results, and they want, and so the way we position it in terms of getting them to adopt it is it's a quick win, right? So it's whether you organize your homework or you have a timetable on your wall or you put out your clothes the night before school. It's everything is a quick win to help a child just deal with what their preference is and practice their stretches.
Right. I love how you're using the language, because I think that's important when we help kids realize it's just stretching and not a level that they can't reach. So thank you.
Well, we use it as like a workout. If you've got a muscle that needs working out, you've got to go to the gym and work that out. So that's how we do it.
That's right.
So, yeah, and the kids are very. The thing is, the wonderful thing is the children are just so receptive to it. But it's the general British public is quite. They're not as open to it, you know. It's not as easy for them to see. And we've worked with family groups, we've worked with, you know, individual children, classes, conflict groups, and the results are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So I just wish everyone would go for it, you know, and I just think if I had a few quick, easy strategies to sell in,
Right.
they would bite it, if you know what I mean.
I do, and there may be something how we can help you out with some of that. The
Yeah,
strategy in the Facebook pages are random, so they can apply to different types. So it would be just to say, with this one specific type,
yeah,
what would be some reasonable pieces? Let me offer you one other suggestion for your child who may be shy as well as introverted, because you can
yeah,
have a shy, extroverted child.
yeah, no, yeah,
Is that I've had children go up to the teacher and say, I want to answer questions for you, but
yeah,
sometimes I like to do pre-thinking. So
yeah,
if you will tell me the day before
yeah,
that the topic, just say, tomorrow I'm going to ask you a question about the latest land reformation.
yeah,
Okay, so they don't have to tell them exactly what they're going to ask. But the
exactly.
child then can go home that night
Yeah,
and pre-prepare an answer kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And I have not had a teacher yet who said no.
No, exactly. We give the same advice for the S and N dichotomy. You know, we say to the children, if you need the specific instructions and you're not getting them, there's no teacher that would say no to you going to them and saying, is this what you expect from me? Can I just
Right.
make sure that my understanding is right? And so we're in a number of schools at the moment, and as I say, you know, we're trying to educate staff as much as pupils, as much as parents, because everyone needs to speak the same language and understand all the, you know, the theory behind it to make
Right.
it max out for the kids. But yeah, so at the moment, you know, we are starting at the children, and our main age is 9 to 13. That's the underrepresented group in the UK. But you know, it's at every hurdle we get a challenge, which is just the way the UK people are, and it's lovely that they're just that's what they are. But I just want to give them more practical, you know, no-brainers, as they call them here. You know, it's just like you would do it because it's a no-brainer. And I've done it with all my children, and it's a no-brainer. You know, I know what they are, and I know what helps them, and you just go for it, and it works.
Right.
So,
a lot of it is in the respectful language that we use
yeah,
with children,
yeah,
so that you honor and reflect where they are, but say, now, is that where we need to be? You know, so you have all the information, but it's just you're not coming up with any good idea right now. So
yeah,
you have to kind of design, the latest one I heard was they needed to design a boat that would float using paper.
yeah,
So it's kind of like, okay, so what do we know about floating, about boats, about water, about all of those pieces that will help us in the design phase? So let's look at what we know, and then let's look at, what could be possible? How could we design this so it would be just the best on the water? And you kind of draw out the fun phase for them, which will be the sensing or intuition side, and the work phase for them, which will be either the sensing or the intuition side, whichever one is the opposite. But then they're able to do it. So if I had to give a gift to parents or teachers, it would be, how do you draw out the polarity of language so that both types are respected, but the child's able to go to their best side first?
yeah. Well, that's what we're currently trying to do, is talk with teachers and we do these free talks in the staff room, you know, so that you can say, like, just the basic is EI, right? So you say to them, right, instead of just saying, okay, 2 big groups, go and discuss this matter, why don't you say, for 10 minutes, you're going to go into pairs and talk about whatever, and then you're going to group up and you're going to present it to the class. So that sort of covers both E and I. So you're looking at the strategies. Again, it's these strategies for us in the UK that are quick wins, and it's how can you help teachers then say, this is the way you need to teach in your class, so that you use your style and your stretch, basically.
Right.
You know, so it is amazing. I absolutely love it. I really do, and I think it's got a lot of. I hope to MMTIC the whole of the UK. That's what I hope, anyway.
Well, I'm hopeful that you'll be able to bring type into the lives of a lot of children that will
Yeah.
help them discover who they are, because knowing these differences is powerful for parents.
Yeah.
I had one recently talk with me about a comment that I had made several years ago, and you know how you just make one and they just react to it, but it wasn't a big thing. But they were thinking their child was a drama queen, but she really was an extroverted sensor. So for her, physical sensations were much more intense experiences than for the introverted intuitive parent. So if a mosquito bit her, it was like,
it's a big deal. Yeah.
And you know, for the parent, it's like, what was that? Oh, we must have had a mosquito sometime, where they don't even notice it. But I said, that's because they're so present focused, so totally aware of their present sensations for them, and in their extroverted way, they are sharing with you that something has just happened to them, versus your intuitive nature, which is saying, oh, okay, that's not a critical event, so I won't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But 2 years later, they say, you don't know what a difference that made in our lives, because we quit overreacting to what we thought was her overreaction.
Yeah.
We just said, oh, so you had a mosquito visit you.
Yeah.
Go find another.
Well, that's sort of another point that I would like to ask, actually. I don't know if I could just sort of carry on. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to ask a question. But
I'll just step in and say we do have a couple people, but carry on.
Okay, just one quick one then. You know how children are experimenting really with all the dichotomies and the preferences. I've been amazed. I've been absolutely amazed after the doing the MMTIC assessment online, the self-awareness of children and the ability that they have to self-assess. I've been absolutely amazed. I think out of probably 80% get four letters without even questioning it. How, like, I never want to prescribe, I never want to say to a child, don't, this is your stretch, you've got to practice. I want them just to experience it and experiment. Is this all part of the feedback that you train us in?
Yes, it's like if you do the Z with them, so that you're thinking in the 4 ways, they're going to be getting some experience in modeling in the other functions without making it even so obviously as a stretch. But you can just say, oh, well, at least one of those is going to be your most fun part, and the other one will be its partner that you like to do it. And then 2 of them might be more of like, gee, I haven't tried that before. The analogy with development that I've been using lately that seems to be helping some is that it all starts out in the unconscious, which is why it's so clear for the children. Many of them, it's totally unconsciously driven. They don't have an option to choose from. They only know their way. So it's not like their personality is developed yet. It's still being driven by unconscious drives.
Yeah.
And so if you take a balloon and you blow it up the first time, you really huff and you puff to blow up some of those children's balloons.
Yeah.
You let the air out, and then you blow it up a second time. It's a little bit easier. And you let the air out, and you blow it up the 20th time. It kind of blows up pretty easily, and then you let the air out. So when we use a function for the first time, we're bringing it up. It's like blowing up that balloon the first time. It takes a lot of effort and work. But when we're done using it, the air goes out, and it goes back down into the unconscious to wait to be used again.
Yeah.
We tend to favor and keep pulling up the same ones. So even just telling the kids, oh, you've been using the red balloon all along, let's pull up a blue balloon. Let's look at this.
Okay. That's our favorite exercise, absolutely without question, is left-handed, right-handed, across your arms. They just love those sorts of things. They can really relate to it. So, no, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Well, good luck with all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. And up on my screen, I put a book that might help as an extra resource.
I've written it down. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm going to mute you now, Ellie. I'm going to open up Harumi. Can you hear us, Harumi?
Yes.
You had a follow-up question, I think, from your first one that I read aloud. Go ahead.
Actually, it wasn't a follow-up. Dr. Murphy was going to answer my question in 2 parts. Dr. Murphy, it was about the The general
Right.
question about your advice about children's after-school activities. Is it best to ask the
Right.
child or best to encourage based on preference? Thank you for your answer on the second part about quitting.
Right. And so I think I said it depends on why they're going to those after-school activities. So first I would make clear, am I sending them there because I need a location for them to be safe while I'm at work? Which then isn't an option. And so then we talk to the kids about, well, how do you enjoy that after-school activity times, which in some places we call extended day. And they get to go there and do games and puzzles and art and a whole range of different activities, including just outside playing. Or am I looking to go to this after-school activity to increase a skill? Am I taking ballet lessons, the karate lessons? Am I taking sports and coaching? What am I gaining from that? So first I need to say, before I say should you tell them to go or not, I look at see what is the output I need. Do I need coverage for childcare? Do I need them to have a skill that I want them to develop? If it's just, no, they could come home or they could do nothing, then I always would say to the kids something like, you could choose however many activities you would like, but at least once a month we're going to make a commitment of community service. And that community service might be picking up trash in the park. It might be helping to wash dogs in the animal shelter. It might be reading a book to people in the nursing home. But we're going to give some of our time back to the community. Again, you see my values coming in here. But it's this age, it's the ages between 5 and 12 when we teach children our values. And so in order to teach them our values, there's nothing more powerful than a parent being with a child while they meet this commitment of service. And like I said, it might be 1 hour a month that they go to do something. But it really has helped some children take that focus away from me, 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 me. And they go, why do I have to do that? Because you live here. And because we're part of this community, we're going to give something back to this community. And I just find that kids are okay with that, and they love it when the parent actually does it with them. Once they get older, once they're in that 7th and 8th and 9th grade, now they usually get a friend who goes with them to do the activity. But it can still be just once a month for an hour. What kind of service time would you like to do to volunteer? So before I would say yes, the child should do it or no, the child should not, I'd want to get clarity with the parent on why am I engaging the child in these activities? What's my central purpose?
In terms of that question, the culture here in Japan is for kids to go to after-school activity, like learning activities.
Okay.
I mean, that's the culture. Everyone goes to piano, ballet, karate, something. I mean, 3 or 4 activities, almost every day. So this is a question I often get.
So if it's an expectation, remember there's balance is important. So I would never make the expectation be every day. I really would not. Mm-hmm. I would say if your culture is one that is expecting the children to do it every day, I would say, okay, you can do 3 days where you do lessons, but 2 days are optional time. If you want to go do something or if you're not. Because if we constantly schedule a child's day, we are not allowing any self-management, and then we're not allowing any development. We want them to be able to have choices, because it's by making choices that these functions are going to develop. So that would just be my suggestion for you, kind of balancing children with culture.
Thank you, Harumi. I hope that answered your question. I'm going to now unmute Susan, who has a question, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Susan, are you there?
Hello, Doctor. Yeah, I'm here. Hello, Dr. Murphy.
Hi.
Okay, my question, I was certified earlier this year, and I'm actually worked with, I've done 3 clients so far on using the MMTIC, and the first 2, everything went rather smoothly. And this last one that I've done, she came out with very high scores. She came out an ISFJ on the MMTIC, with a 94 on the I, 100 on the S, a 99.9 on the F, and 100 on the J. When we went over the validation, over the exercises in the books, she insists that she is a T. I then went and tried various exercises that I've used with adults, describe conflict, or you're going someplace and you've got everybody can't go, you only got 12 slots and you've got 15 people, trying to see how she would make decisions. I used some cartoon different things. And at the end of it all, she still insists that she's a T, but her answers just varied. I mean, when she answered about conflict, she answered how an F would answer. And then in other things, she answered like a T would answer. And I guess if she had scored a little bit lower, but her high score being 99.9, I was just amazed at that and wondered if there's some explanation for that or how I should treat it.
I've had adults do the same thing, where they would score a PCI of 30, which is the highest you can get on the MBTI JP scale, and for J, and then when they listen to the description say, no, I'm very flexible, I think I'm a perceiver. And my answer is, when you answered the questionnaire, all of the questions that were on the judging side were very attractive to you. But when you're listening to the description today, all of the descriptions on the perceiving side are attractive to you. So with that child, I would have said, when you did your questionnaire, all of the feeling answers were very attractive to you, as that would have been your first choice. And that you would also then use your thinking side. But today, when you're hearing everything, you're seeming to say that the thinking side is the one that you would use first, and then the feeling side. Where she may be caught is thinking it's either or, not first then. Because if it's either or, and she's got T parents or T teachers or T that has been given more recognition than F, then she's going to want to do that. I have adults that are 22 that tell me they only want to be TJ because they want the corner office, and all managers are TJ, so therefore they want to be a TJ. So sometimes we get caught up with the cultural press for which is the favored personality type. And she may be dealing with some of that. But if she always knows, oh, yes, of course, you can be looking at what is fair about this as well as who needs my help. It's just which one did you tend to do first, not did you only do one of them. And if she says, no, I really believe T is true for me, then I would say, well, you know what? Today the T side sounds so good, and the other day when you answered the questionnaire, the F side sounded so good. Let's do this. Let's use both of them for the next 6 months and see which one of them, if any, if either one, kind of comes up as your more favorite choice. Because we don't need to rush them, and we don't need to prove to them. This is about self-awareness. If there's some reason they aren't wanting to either go in that direction, or there's no clarity for them in that direction, then it's okay. So you're using your judgment and going, no matter what they say, all I hear from her is F. Except there was something about your description of T that made it so appealing that she wanted to be part of that too. So the focus would probably be on what do you use first, and then you do the other, so that she doesn't feel like she has to choose only one or the other in life, and that she can round out and use both functions adequately.
Okay, I did try a little bit of, which would you use first and things, but sometimes she would just come back with, I don't know. And so I didn't know if it was immaturity or not, but I'm working with her sister and her mother as well. And I think in the family, she's looked at as the smart one. She's the younger sister, looked at as the smarter one. And therefore, her sister is more of the F, and so she wants to be different from her sister, so it was just sort of hard. What I finally ended up recommending was that she's just a sophomore in high school right now, that maybe in a couple of years she tried taking it again, when she's matured a little bit more. I didn't use the word matured a little bit more, but might want to try taking it again and just seeing how she comes out there. But I was just totally surprised to see such a strong response one way and the opposite response the other way, where most of them have been pretty much right on. I mean, they do use both. They can see that they can use both. But she sort of was just rejecting that feeling side, and I tried to explain that it doesn't mean we don't, that feelers don't think and thinkers don't feel. And I just couldn't get any clarity from her at all, so that was what was a little bit frustrating.
Okay. But you did say she wanted to be different from her sister. And if her sister had the feeling preference, then she needed to have the thinking preference in order to have that uniqueness. But it's okay for her to say, it's not about later on. It's kind of like just to keep enjoying both parts of you and let whatever one kind of swims up to the top first be the one that guides you. It's like there's no rush. There's no rush. If they are aware of the differences, and they're able to use both of the differences in their life by making choices that are fair as well as friendly, then she's going to be fine. And if something in her life is kind of saying, oh, I want to do it this way, I want to be this way, because a lot of times at that age of 12 to 17, 18, we have kids that are saying, oh, I will be this, as if they can totally control what their personality expression will be. I want to be the outgoing popular one. I want to be the jock. I want to be the rebel. I want to be this. And they adopt more of a persona that they think is real, but it's really just a persona that they're trying on. So I would just say what I think is wonderful is that you feel this is clear for you now, and yet all of your questions that chose the F answer before says that you are aware there's another part of you too. So enjoy exploring and using each of them when it's right. When is the best time to use it? With young kids with that PF difference, we really have to help them sort and learn how to play fairly and friendly so that that driving need of competition, self-mastery, doesn't overwhelm the relationships. And maybe, like, how would you help someone who wanted to learn how to lose friendly? How would you help someone who wanted to win fairly and friendly, even if it meant that their friends lost or that somebody else's feelings got hurt because they wanted to win so badly? What kind of advice would you give them? And give them some scenarios where they would have to kind of pre-think an answer that they would phrase for the two different dichotomies. But I would just allow her the freedom to not be clear there rather than force it. If your description, and it sounds like you were using very good language, did not help her to sort, I wouldn't let her just say, I'm a T, because I would not throw away the results of the MTIC, which were her answers. Right. And I would just say, well, this is, so far you seem to have a shared perspective on this. And let each one work for you in the right moment.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Let's see. Tim Allen has a question, so I'm going to unmute his mic. Before I do, though, Robin asked, what's the earliest age to utilize the MMTIC assessment? And Robin, is validated from 7th grade up to 12th grade, or from 7 years old until 18. So here is Tim. Tim, can you hear us? Hello, Tim. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Ah, there you are.
Oh, yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just have a question for Dr. Murphy. Right now I'm teaching Chinese-speaking children how to speak English as a second language. And I'm wondering if there are any specific personality types that are better at learning to speak a foreign language than other types.
That's an interesting question. I've had some people raise some hypotheses about that, but I haven't seen any hard research. But you know what we've got at CAT? Actually, the Milo, which is the library with all of the available research studies that would have been used probably more with adults, but to see if you put in language learning and type to see if you would pull up any studies that might be able to answer that more definitively. I think sometimes it's more about how we learn the language rather than if we can learn the language that I would be suspicious of. That if the language is a very, very precise language, as an intuitive, I'm going to make so many grammatical errors because of my lack of precision generally, whereas somebody else might be very precise with their learning, take it on very sequentially in a sensing way, and learn each of the pieces, the component pieces. And Chinese is a very complicated, specific characters, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you guys, I'll just interject. I went to the Ars bibliography search and typed in language learning, and well, no shortage of hits here.
Oh, I see that, yeah.
So, yeah, so you might go to Milo and do a search, and there are a lot of papers here, and some of them you could get from our library. Our librarian might be able to get them for you. So go to our page. It's called under research. You'll see on the CAP website, Milo bibliography search would be the place to go. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to give you that information.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah. The same types, the same adult personality types that find language learning easy or easier would probably also would be the same thing for children also. You think?
I would be suspicious that that would be true because in the freedom of study, we choose the path that works best for us. So I think sensing patterns as children is similar to the sensing pattern of an adult learner learning something new, as same as for the intuitive. That sensing love of practice. So if you looked at the last posting that I put on the type tips for kids, it tells about an intuitive child who had to master doing 100 multiplication facts drill within their minute of time, or whatever it is. They might have been 2 minutes, but a minute of time. And he was doing them in the correct order, and he couldn't beat the timer. He just couldn't beat the timer. He said, by the time I've written down that answer and then looked at the next one, I just couldn't beat the timer. So I went backwards, and instead of going left to right, I started on the right side, because while I'm writing down the answer with my right hand, my eye is able to see the problem to the left, and then I could solve that and then write and see it, and so he could multitask and do both of those. The freedom to be able to look for a new way of getting it done was his intuitive side said, practice isn't working for me. I got to find a different strategy. But sensing kids have said, I just practice so I know them so fast that as soon as I see those numbers, I can just throw the answer down there. Well, he knew the answer too, but he just wasn't able to make the pacing work at the same way. But practice and repeated practice wasn't helping him increase his time. So he had to come up with a more innovative way for him. And he was so proud of discovering a way that let him get through, that it was the joy of the innovative way that helped make that an exciting task for him, rather than following it in a sequential practice, repetitive kind of pattern that would be very effective for maybe a sensing learner.
Okay. And would there be a specific type that's a little better at hearing sounds, hearing specific sounds of another language and mimicking them when they speak at the same time that they're mentally they're translating?
There's nothing about type theory that would make me hypothesize one type being able to do that more effectively than another. I think we may be talking about another part of human learning that is beyond type, and now another character.
I'm going to unmute Harumi's mic. Harumi, you go ahead and contribute. She has something to contribute to our talk here. Can you go ahead and talk, Harumi? Harumi? She looks like she muted herself. Never mind. But she says she's learned that the way to teach needs to be individualized for optimal results. SPs need movement and fun and games. INJ is taking things in, but it's not as apparent when you speak to them, but it comes out when you ask them to write. That makes sense.
Okay. Okay, Harumi, thank you.
Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, Harumi would like to know, Tim, if she could contact you because she has similar work in teaching English to students. Is it okay to share your email with her?
Oh, certainly, yes. Yeah, I'd love to do that, yes.
I'll do that then. Let's see, does anyone else have a question here? But we have about 8 minutes left. Thank you, Tim.
Oh, sure.
See if I see anyone else with a question here. Harumi has a question. Okay. Harumi, looks like you might be, you have to unmute your own microphone there. There you go. Harumi, are you there?
Oh, is this, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Hi, Dr. Murphy. Just in the last 7 minutes, my daughter is an INFP. She has an INFP preference. Do you have any just general advice?
For an INFP, general advice.
And I am ENFJ.
Yeah.
Yes.
With an INFP, relationships are incredibly important. And so they're going to always want to feel bonded and connected with the people in their family or with friends. And that when there are relationship issues, a friend breaking up with them, or later on a boy breaking up with them, or mom or dad mad at them, it really breaks their heart. And so they're going to want to always feel comfortable and safe in the sense that when you get irritated and annoyed with me, doesn't mean that you don't love me anymore. And if there's some security in that, and it could be like, you know, I love having you as a daughter, but right now you're driving me crazy. It's okay because you're saying that the relationship is solid, but right now is not the moment. And sometimes it's okay to say to children that my energy is so low right now, I really need to have a moment all by myself just so I can get my energy back. And if the introverted child is going to understand that totally. As an extroverted parent, that's not likely to be a comment you would make. They sometimes like to be with people without talking. They want to be part of the group but not be contributing to the group overtly, simply because they're enjoying the other people, but they don't have the energy for the extroverted kind of interaction in that moment. They just want to enjoy that kind of company. And then I guess the other piece I would say if I had an introvert INFP child is to make sure they had some outlet for creative expression, and that for the child to discover their creative expression, whether it's going to be through literature or art or sports or dance or playing in the mud, growing flowers, growing roses, something, but that there usually is some kind of contentment that the INFP experiences when they've done some innovative creative work. They're going to have the idea without the skills for executing it. So you may have to say things like, I love your thoughts and your designs and your concepts. If you need help making that happen, just ask and we'll see if we can't work together on that. Because one of the flaws of that extroverted intuition is that it's going to get inspiration from being in the world and around in the world, but not necessarily have all of the sensing skills, the specific skills for making that design happen. And then they can get quite frustrated, and so then they reduce their inspiration to their production level, which is much lower. So to keep them recognizing there are two levels. One is inspiration, possibilities, what else? And the other one is, now let's make it. how can we make it? What tools do we have that we can use to make it? Because they're very different. And sometimes their inspiration is going to take them in ways that aren't reasonable. You can't make that happen. You know, it won't work that way. So it's the little boy that had to do the boat was talking about building a clay foundation and then putting the paper on the clay foundation. And it's like, wow, if that boat stayed on land, that would be really cool. But let's try and see what happens if we put a piece of clay in water, just to see what happens. Oh, it kind of sinks. So that may not be the best material for your design. Your design is cool. But let's talk about some of those supporting pieces that we need to make your design happen. And if you have an INFP, more oftentimes that's where they need the support and mentoring, not on the design phase. And they just need a lot of hugs. They need a lot of reaffirmation that there's the connection there. So we had said we were going to have today, we were going to look at some activities to do for splitting activities. And we kind of got some really good questions instead. So I'm hoping that you're comfortable that we covered some really good questions. And the splitting activities, if you want, Rob and I can figure out a way to put some up for you. But for those who are certified, you have the free download that's going to give you some suggestions already. And I guess we'll probably have time for maybe one more question if there is one, Rob.
I don't see one up here just right now, so I think since we're right at the top of the hour, I'll just remind everyone that, as Elizabeth mentioned, if you go to Facebook and look for Type for Kids, you'll find her Type for Kids tips. We have a website called Type for Kids if you want to share that with folks who want to learn about the MMTIC assessment. There's also a Twitter account you can follow. There's a YouTube channel with many, many videos that star Elizabeth Murphy. And of course, you can get more information on the CAPT website, capt.org. And Elizabeth Harumi says, today was great, thank you. Walter says, this has been fantastic, thanks. And as always, I always learn so much, especially just now that INFPs, that's my preference. So I need a hug right now.
I'll send you an electronic one, Rob, because I appreciate it all. Thank you all for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you, everyone, for attending, and we'll keep you posted when we do another one, and a recording of this should go on the CAPT website within a week, so look in that section soon. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.